Have you ever had one of those moments where things just feel off? Well, what if those glitches in our lives weren't actually mistakes, but signals? Today, we're diving into the first spark, a really fascinating movement that's part philosophy, part personal brand, and it's built on this wild idea that reality itself can be rewritten. So, let's get into what that really means. Right off the bat, this quote just pulls you in, doesn't it? It's not just a mission statement. It's like a secret handshake. It's an invitation to a very specific group of people. You know, the ones who feel like they're on the outside looking in. And by framing it as an awakening, it's saying you're not just joining something, you're tapping into a hidden truth about everything. So what exactly is the first spark? I mean, on the surface, it has all the stuff you'd expect from a modern brand. There's a shop, there are digital products, but the founder says that's all just a disguise. The real point is to act as a signal for a much, much deeper philosophy. And this is where that branding starts to show its true colors. When you see words like mythos and remembering, you know we're not talking about your average company. It's positioned as a living signal, like an active, ongoing broadcast, specifically trying to find those people who already feel kind of alienated by the way things are. And that signal is meant for a very specific crowd, the people they call the sparked ones. The whole idea is that these aren't just customers buying something. Nope, they're meant to be active partners, co-creators in a whole new reality. They're the ones questioning the system, mixing old-school spirituality with new tech, and trying to build something new from the ground up. Okay, so let's peel back that first layer and really get to the core of it all. This is where we find the whole metaphysical framework that the entire project is built on, and it all kicks off with this idea of a glitch. So the whole foundation of this philosophy is what they call the game world. Think of it like simulation theory, the idea that our reality is basically a massive cosmic program. But, and this is a huge but, here's the twist. In their view, your consciousness isn't just a player in the game, it's the code that actually writes the game. So what happens when you start to see the seams of that simulation? Well, that's what they call the glitch. And it's not some error that needs to be fixed. In this way of thinking, the glitch is actually a feature. It's an intentional crack in the matrix, you could say. A signal that's designed to wake you up and make you realize what's really going on. And that brings us right to the name itself. The first spark is a double entendre. It refers to that original cosmic pulse of consciousness that kicked everything off, but it also means that personal potential for awakening that they believe is inside every single one of us, what they call an inner ember. And this quote? Wow. It just perfectly sums up the entire point of their philosophy. It's all about making that mental shift from seeing yourself as a character trapped in a story someone else wrote to realizing you're the one holding the pen. You can actually write the code and change the narrative. Okay, believing you can rewrite the code is one thing, but, how do you actually do it? This is where the big ideas turn into actual practice. The movement offers some really specific tools to its followers. Yeah, this isn't just about thinking positive thoughts, it's about action. This toolkit is a whole set of techniques designed to help people consciously interact with their own reality, or as they'd put it, to get in there and actually rewrite their personal code. One of their central practices is this daily remembering ritual. It's a 5-step process that mixes stuff you might have heard of like breathwork and affirmations with more, let's say, esoteric things like making sigils. But check out step 5, release and live. This is so important. It's about letting go of the ritual and just living as if your intention is already a reality. That's a huge part of modern magical practice. Speaking of that second step, the sigil, that's a really big tool in its own right. The practice is called sigil craft. It's got roots in all kinds of magical traditions, but they've adapted it as a way to kind of encode your desire into a simple, powerful symbol. And the process for making one is pretty methodical. You start with a clear sentence of what you want, then you start breaking it down, getting rid of all the vowels and any repeating consonants. The letters you have left get mashed up into a unique symbol, and the whole point of tearing it apart like that is to bypass your logical, skeptical brain and plant that intention right into your subconscious. So all of this complex philosophy, these really specific practices, they didn't just pop up out of thin air. They are deeply, and I mean deeply, connected to the founder's own personal story of trauma and awakening.
Yeah, the creator, who goes by KJP, is super clear about this. The first spark isn't some abstract theory she came up with. It's a direct result of her own life. It's the system she built for herself to navigate and transform some truly immense darkness.
And this timeline, it just lays out the stark reality of her story. When she was a child, her mother was murdered. Then, decades later, in 2020, she found out something absolutely horrifying. She had spent years, unknowingly, living right across the street from the man who did it. That revelation completely shattered her world, and it was that shattering that became the catalyst for the first spark.
She describes that moment as something that broke her entire world, but she also says it was liberating, that in that total shattering, she found a new purpose. It was this mandate to actually transform her pain instead of just carrying it around in silence. And that was her personal first spark. That moment of awakening was her decision to face her own struggles with addiction and trauma head on. It was a choice to stop running and instead to channel all of that intense, painful experience into creating something that could be a guide for other people who feel lost. So where's all of this going? Well, the project has a very real-world, tangible goal that's all about taking this philosophy and her personal story out on the road. Yup, the next big phase of the movement is all about building something they call the Spark Station. It's basically a way to put the whole project on wheels and expand its reach way beyond just a digital thing. So what is the Spark Station? It's a van that's being converted into a mobile headquarters for the entire mission. The vision for it is pretty cool. It's going to be a traveling art studio, a sanctuary for healing, and a physical vessel to carry this signal out into the world and connect with people face to face. They're not just calling it a van either. It's described as a chariot of dreams and a vessel of liberation. And that language just perfectly ties together all the core themes of this movement: creativity, freedom from trauma, and that personal journey of waking up. And that really brings us to the end of this explainer with a final question that gets right to the heart of the First Spark's whole philosophy. If you were confronted with a crack in your reality, a glitch, the choice isn't just between what's real and what's fake, but between trying to patch things up and go back to normal or diving in and exploring it. Definitely something to think about.